So we've had a very good start to the year. We've done our half-year budget review up to the end of December, and what that's revealed is a $5 million operating profit for the first half of the year, which is about a $4.3 million improvement on the same 6 months last year, and that's been achieved with about $11 million reduction in operating costs year on year. So at this stage we're travelling pretty well.
So has GRV reforecast its budget for FY25?
Yeah, so taking into account though that first half result, we're now forecasting around about a $4.5 million operating profit for the year, and when we factor in things like infrastructure and depreciation expenses, that's actually a $23 million turnaround on the same comparative period last year. So that's been achieved through a reduction in staff costs, a reduction in operating costs, but also an improvement in wagering revenue. So all round, at this stage, we're looking at a very positive and a much quicker return to profitability than we expected at the start of the year.
One of the other changes has been the 13 and 14 race cards in exchange for the second Sunday race meeting. How has that gone?
Yeah, well, this is part of our racing program efficiency sort of project, which is about trying to reduce the operating costs, making sure we get the right races in the racing program at the same time. We took out the Sunday day meeting, which was mostly at Ballarat, which was one of our lowest turnover race meetings of the week. And now we've added these 13 and 14 races into race meetings. Overall, they're doing about 16% better our average turnover per race than what we would have got out of a Sunday day meeting. So overall, it's a net positive. We're being able to program those races in the right time slots, so getting Sky One coverage is really important. And overall, it's produced a very solid net benefit for the organisation. And it means also that we're able to run those race meetings relatively within around about the same time schedule. It's adding maybe about 15 minutes to the overall program. So we've taken into account all of those things, fine-tuned them, and now we're embedding that into the program on a permanent basis, and we'll look to other opportunities to be able to do that as well.
And how is wagering turnover tracking?
So year to date, we're about even with last year. So that's a pretty good result considering where we come from, to think that we've run around about 400 fewer races year on year and around 60 fewer race meetings. So to be able to get the same turnover result, mostly out of that wagering and race meeting efficiency kind of approach, and making sure we get as many races as possible into the best time slots, our best performing race meetings on Sky One. That's really led to a turnover result that's probably better than most people would have expected, and it's certainly better than trend when we look at some of the other codes at the moment, which is really encouraging. The turnover results in particular that we got through October to December were really encouraging, really positive. And when we look at the Dream Chasers Festival, for example, across Sandown and the Meadows during November, December, we had a 9% increase in turnover on those 5 feature meetings. They're our biggest turnover race meetings of the year. To go 9% year on year was really encouraging. And then when we had the Australian Cup Carnival during February at the Meadows, those 3 nights of the Australian Cup Carnival produced a 14% year-on-year turnover growth. So some really encouraging signs, particularly around our feature race meetings, which says we're starting to get some of that right, and we're getting some customers back betting and betting more frequently, particularly on the feature nights.
We've lost a lot of meetings due to hot weather. What impact has that had?
So we have lost a few race meetings, particularly during late January and February in particular. Everyone will know, particularly up north, around Bendigo, Shepherd and Horsham, those meetings and those race meetings over that period have been significantly impacted, where we've moved a lot of meetings to mornings. That's really to meet our hot weather policy, look after the greyhounds in particular, and where we've also lost some race meetings where we've had extreme heat. That obviously has an impact on wagering, and those morning meetings, they're really a lost cause, but they're there. We run them basically to make sure that participants, the greyhounds, are getting the opportunity to race. But from a turnover perspective, February in particular did cop a bit of a belting. So we are being able to recycle through that now, and March is looking to be a lot stronger again.
GRV also announced on Monday a pilot for a new tier of racing.
Yeah, look, we've listened to some feedback from participants around looking after those greyhounds who really even struggle to compete in Tier 3 at the moment. So we've created, as a trial, for about 6 weeks from the end of March, these races that will be called, as a working title, Challenger class. And the idea is if your greyhound is 0.2 of a second below the Tier 3 time standard, then you'll be eligible to compete in these race meetings. It's as a trial, see how they go. We've got about 35% of greyhounds are actually eligible for this class, so there is likely to be demand for it. It's just another opportunity to be able to provide racing opportunities for greyhounds of all grades.
And does GRV have an update on the statuses of Cranbourne and Traralgon at the moment?
Well, there's been some really good work done on Cranbourne by the Cranbourne Club and also with the assistance of GCV to be able to develop a really impressive business case around what's involved in being able to do the redevelopment at Cranbourne, what the costs are and how we take a different approach to that. That's been submitted to government for consideration for financial assistance through the VRIF program. It's looking very positive that we should be able to make some announcements around the Cranbourne project in the next couple of weeks, but at this stage, everything's tracking towards being able to get that project off the ground. With Traralgon, the Sale Club, as administrator of the Traralgon Greyhound Racing Club, is doing some work at the moment on getting some very accurate cost estimates for what needs to be done at Traralgon to return that track to racing and trialling. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to see something from that exercise in the next few weeks, and then we'll be able to make some decisions about what happens there.
And what's happening in the rehoming space at the moment?
Well, April is National Greyhound Adoption Month, and all of the GAP operations around Australia all get together and promote greyhounds as pets nationally. We've got events going on all around the country, but in Victoria we've got a number of events throughout April that will be about really putting that greyhound as pets foremost in people's minds, being able to try and engage as many people as possible at those events and trying to rehome as many greyhounds as we can throughout the month of April.
Back in February, GRV hosted an event in Parliament Gardens. Can you tell us what that was about?
This is the second time we've conducted this event, and it was something that was very well supported last year, but this year even better. We had around 35 MPs from all different parties that came along and were part of an event that celebrated everything about greyhound racing in Victoria, including what the economic impact is, really important for us to be able to communicate the full-time jobs, the economic impact across the state, all of the various country clubs that are involved in greyhound racing around Victoria. We had the opportunity to showcase some really important stories as well, with Angela Langton talking about her experience in greyhound racing and how she mixes so many other different things, including her other career as a scientist, along with Jihad Tauji as well, being able to talk about his experience and what a game changer it's been for him and his family, with Scalacci winning the Phoenix in the year before last. So all of that was great to be able to tell the stories. Had a number of greyhounds on site, adoption dogs from our GAP program as well. So it was really well received. Very important that we continue to engage with politicians. Very important that we're able to tell our story about what greyhound racing is about and what Greyhound Racing Victoria does.
And finally, we're in the midst of a series of country cups.
Yes, Shepparton Cup coming up this Saturday night. That's clearly going to be another great event. Shepparton do a terrific job in engaging their local community. Of course, we had the Horsham Cup a couple of weeks ago, where the club actually did a really good job. They really had a family theme. We saw a lot of people on course on the night. It was terrific, beautiful weather, fantastic night. Great cup final with Flying Zulu getting the money for the Thompsons, and it was a terrific race. So looking forward to seeing that. Of course, then we get to Geelong Cup coming up through April, and then we head to the Warrnambool May Carnival for the Warrnambool Cup.